Hello, everyone, and good afternoon from Spain. Thank you for being today with us in the FIWARE Cybersecurity Day. My name is Ángeles Tejado, and I am representing the FIWARE Foundation that is organizing this event, supported by European projects GUARD and Cyberwatching. Just a few recommendations before we start. This is a live event and is being recorded. That means that by attending, you agree to the recording, which will be made available in FIWARE's YouTube channel afterwards. Should any of you have any question during this session, please drop them into the question and answer section on the right, adding, if possible, the name of the speaker the question is for. Now, let's welcome our fellow speakers today. Fabio Martinelli, Research Director at the National Research Council of Italy and Vice-Chairman of the European Cybersecurity Organization, EXO. Professor Jaron Worsthal, Head of IBM Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. Nicola Ferguson, Senior Project Manager in Trust IT Services and Project Coordinator of Cyberwatching. Professor David Wallum, Associate Professor in the Department of Engineering Science at the University of Oxford. Paolo Rossetti, Senior Researcher at Ingegneria Informatica. Paolo Secondo Crosta, Innovation and Research and Development Manager in Italtel Group. Cornelio Hoffman, Technical Lead at Webcom GmbH. And Armand Dusa, Senior Research and Development Project Manager in Grupo Maggioli. I will now hand it over to the person who will be steering the direction of the dialogue today. Vito Monreale is the Director of the Industry and Security Technologies Research and Innovation Lab within the Research and Development Department at Engineering. His relevant expertise and experience include artificial intelligence, big data analytics, software engineering, and social software applied to the industry, agri-food, security, and defense sectors. He has been involved in and coordinated several European security projects focusing on fighting terrorism and criminal activities, critical infrastructure protection, border security, and cybersecurity. The stage is yours, Vito.
Thanks, Angeles. I hope you can hear me. I will just share a couple of slides. First of all, thanks for the very, very nice introduction, Angeles. I'm really happy to be here today. So thanks to the organizers, thanks to the FIWARE Foundation and the two projects that are organizing this workshop for inviting me and for moderating this, I think, very, very, very interesting workshop. I think that the event will be successful, first of all, thanks to the valuable speakers. And second, I think because of the contribution that all the attendees will provide to the event through, as Angeles was saying, the questions. So I would invite you to make question to the speakers. Okay, let me just 1 second share. Okay, I think you see the screen. Okay, what I wanted to do in these 5-10 minutes is to give some introduction and let's try to create a sort of glue between the different speakers that the speeches that we are going to listen to. I would like to start from two very relevant and two very recent policy documents related to the European strategy. The first one is on security union strategy, and of course is also including the cybersecurity part. And the second one is the Cybersecurity Act, so the strategy, the European strategy on cybersecurity. Just 1 second. Okay, it works. I just wanted to extract very, very few sentences from these two relevant documents, because I think some of them are also relevant for the discussion today. The first point on the left side, so on from the Security Union strategy, is the nature, the future nature of the attacks and the cyber attacks, which will be very, very sophisticated, and in some cases they will be related to hybrid threats. In some cases also performed by state or, let's say, ambiguous organization. The second point is, while on one side we will expect to improve the cybersecurity of product and the services, on the other side it's also important that the knowledge and the understanding of the individuals, and when we say individuals we mean also the end users, the citizen, on the cybersecurity issues and on the potential vulnerability, the systems they normally use. The third point is related to cooperation. So there is the statement that the EC has already identified the need for a joint cyber unit. And of course, this is one of the key points which is really important. On the right side, on the cybersecurity strategy, one important keyword is interconnection. So there are all the sectors, of course, are vulnerable. All the assets, all the system in principle are vulnerable. But the emerging complexity is related to the interconnection among the different objects, the different organizations, the different assets, also cross sector. The landscape of the threat is again quite sophisticated in terms of new potential available for the attackers, and there is a strong pressure on possible very, very relevant target like the critical infrastructure. The word and the term situational awareness or collective situational awareness is also another important aspect that should be also further developed at the European level. And the last point you can see on the right is also a confirmation that the joint cyber unit is, of course, part of the overall European cybersecurity crisis management framework. So what I wanted to put in this slide is a sort of small sentences or keywords that could be go through our 2 hours today. So the first and that could be, of course, food for thought or food for the discussion that we are going to have. The first is, again, the cooperation and the information exchange or sharing. This is, of course, very, very relevant at different levels, not only sharing of, let's say, relevant data, but also sharing of threat intelligence, and also sharing of information related to the incident, and of course sharing of best practice and knowledge and so forth. Resilience is another word which is really important, because of course it's in a scenario in which zero risk is almost impossible. Protection only or detection only is not enough, so it's important to consider the whole life cycle, from preparedness to response, and also to fast recovery in some cases. Another point is artificial intelligence. The three phases of artificial intelligence for cybersecurity. Of course, is artificial intelligence empowering cybersecurity, but there is also the cybersecurity of artificial intelligence solutions, and of course, the misuse of artificial intelligence by the attackers. What we are facing in these last months is something like crisis or extreme events can be a sort of risk multiplier for cyber risk, or for it can impact, of course, the cyber resilience. There is an emerging, I would say not still emerging, but it's something in which there is need a lot of work yet, which is the integration between the physical and the cybersecurity. Interdependencies and cascading effects, so looking at outside of the box, so not only looking at our organization, is also important. Sovereignty, technology sovereignty is something that also should be considered. And last but not least, of course, the literacy is also important. So it's important also to create awareness about what can be the risk for cybersecurity, not only on the expert people, on the IT people, but also in general on the end user, on the citizen. So, starting from these potentially common element for our discussion today, I just wanted to put in a very, very high-level schema the trip that we are going to make today. We will start with a couple of very valuable keynote speakers, Fabio Martinelli and Jaron Wotzfall. Then we will talk about the Cyberwatching project and the Cyberwatching Observatory. Then we will listen to two additional expert views, Paolo Roccetti and Paolo Secondo Crosta. And then we will talk specifically about the two use cases within the GUARD project. Then finally, Stefano De Pamphilys from FIWARE will provide us with some relevant closing remarks. So, I think we can start with the first speaker, Fabio Martinelli. While Fabio share, okay, perfect, Fabio. Angeles already said Fabio is a research director at CNR. He is the referent for cybersecurity activity in CNR. Fabio chaired the working group on research and innovation of the NIS platform promoted by the European Commission, and co-edited the first strategic research agenda for cybersecurity in Europe. Fabio is chairing several working groups, but today he's here mainly as a representative of EXO, as part of the board of the director in EXO, but also as co-chair of the working group responsible for the strategic research agenda of EXO. So Fabio, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Vito. Thank you very much for the invitation and the possibility to present some of the activities of EXO and some of the research priorities and challenges that we discussed in EXO. also we, let's say, suggested to the European Commission. And we are also now in the phase to cooperate with several organizations. I'm pretty sure this is another step of cooperation between EXO and FIWARE. Let me briefly recall what EXO is an industrial association of more than 250 members across 29 countries. Since 20 of these members are actually associations in turn, then we basically connect more than 2,000 organizations from large companies, public organizations, research and technology organizations, universities, with the interest to cover cybersecurity in a holistic manner. So I manage the Working Group 6, as you said, that is about strategic research innovation agenda. There is also a working group on certification, testing and supply chain, Working Group 1. There is a working group for SMEs, a working group on market deployment and uptake, and a working group on education, training and awareness, as well as a working group on, that was Group 3, on sectorial demand, on all the different dimensions, let's say. The Working Group 6 that I coordinate is a big one, and several of you are also member of it, is actually the instrument to suggest to EXO, but also to the wider community, what we think as communities are relevant topics. And in order to have a multiple perspective, we structured ourselves in 5 sub-working groups, in order to have, let's say, more variety and diversity of suggestions, still clearly, in any case, identifying some priorities. So one sub-working group is about the ecosystem and the social good. Another working group is taking into account digital transformation, especially in all the different verticals. Another big area is data and economy. And then we are always looking to basic and disruptive technologies that could change the landscape in the next 7 years, and we need to cope with them. And then there is also a sub-working group with the more sensitive aspects related to dual-use technology and the capability to cooperate with the European organization as the European Defence Agency and the European Space Agency. So you illustrated very well several of the key, let's say, keywords that also we use in our, let's say, agenda. Clearly, we have seen, all of us in our community, an increasing expansion of the digital technologies from the core ICT sector, from hardware and software, telecommunications. We are exchanging and expanding towards a digital economy with a platform, with services, with sharing economy, and clearly then we have expanding our scope to a wider economy that takes into account Industry 4.0, e-commerce, and several sectors. There is a growing digitalization in the society. This is good. There is a growing economy. I think all of us are experiencing with the pandemic how excellent are the capability to work together without moving and still being able to interact. This digital transformation was there, is increasing, and we need to cope with this. But we also expected, and as expected, testifying how many new threats are evolving quickly, and our organizations must be able to adapt to these, let's say, new challenges. And it's interesting, in our RIA, during the pandemic, we had also to add a new dimension for prioritizing the topics. That was also the impact on the pandemic and the smart working aspects. And clearly, as much as these digital services are there, the trusted supply chain increases, it becomes longer and obviously also weaker. So we need to consider all these aspects. The market, I need to tell you that is a very big one. The global cybersecurity market is a big one with a market growth rate of more than 10% in the last years. Unfortunately, it's mainly, well, unfortunately for Europeans, is mainly dominated by North American and Asia providers. I think all of us, including FIWARE, are definitely pushing for a more, let's say, European trust in this matter. We as EXO are fostering also public procurement aspects, and we are trying to foster also a sort of sovereignty, what we call digital strategic autonomy. We have several initiatives to improve, let's say, the European dimension of cybersecurity. as part of our, let's say, activities, we suggested priorities both for Horizon Europe program and for Digital Europe program. You can find these two very detailed documents in the portal of EXO. In these documents, one is mainly for research and innovation activity, the other is mainly for capability building. As I told you, we have several, at least 4 working groups that, in any case, all of them together try to deal with several aspects, in particular infrastructure resilience, building the skills, focusing quite a lot on data and artificial intelligence, as Vito was saying. Those are definitely 2 great element of interest. I mean, as we know, the big data value, for instance, and the artificial community and the robotics are working together for a joint undertaking. So it's clearly that there is a strong, let's say, a linking of different communities, and this is something we also as EXO try to foster. Risk and threat management has been mentioned by Vito at the very beginning. We are in the same page for this, and I think this is a big area of development where a lot of things still need to be done. We also foster cyber-secure hardware and software supply chain, including open source software development. All of this to foster the European competitiveness. So, in order to make a bit schematic, I mean, given the time frame, the contribution usually that EXO is giving, we have this table here, somehow detailed. On the one column, you have the main priorities, as I told you: risk, data, hardware and software, resilient infrastructure, skills and support. And for Horizon Europe, as you know, is more research innovation, is somehow lower TRL, while Digital Europe program is more, let's say, capability building, so really having large projects that are able to provide, let's say, real infrastructures that could be used at the European level. So briefly, for the risk management, definitely we envisage the capability to deal with emerging threats, having holistic risk management approaches that are also able to insert security by design and resilience from the very beginning during the system development. We are also witnessing a lot of cybercrime. This is growing, so we also suggest that digital forensic mechanisms, analytical support should be built in immediately, and this kind of tools and facilities should be widely available. About data and artificial intelligence, we definitely need to protect the data usage control and so on and so forth, but we need also to prevent that data are used in a malevolent way, either providing polluted data, for instance, to artificial intelligence algorithms, or to, let's say, manipulate public opinion for fake news and so on and so forth. This is also part of the cybersecurity. We need to foster also end-to-end privacy. Has been mentioned also economic aspects of cybersecurity, in particular cyber insurance, and how this can be used to help the society to increase their minimum level of preparedness towards security incidents. Then clearly has been mentioned by Vito also how to make artificial intelligence more secure, and how to make this more explainable, and how to avoid that this is used also in a malicious way. In order to support the secure hardware and software supply chains, we need approaches and methods and processes to improve the cybersecurity assessment, evaluation, and certification, also in a continuous manner. We need to improve all the capabilities and the processes to develop secure hardware and software. Altogether, also there is a wider attention and bigger attention in the last years on hardware, and we're experiencing this also at the EXO level, where since it's more than 5 years we are working there. In the last years, hardware is becoming more predominant with respect to what the, let's say, large industries are considering. Also, cryptography is definitely there, with a lot of interest of post-quantum crypto, so cryptography that could, let's say, resist to the advent of quantum computers. Blockchain, IoT security, and the interaction between cyber-physical systems is something that also was mentioned at the very beginning by Vito, and is definitely aligned with what we are doing in EXO. We are definitely fostering infrastructure resilience. We also are pushing for secure quantum computing infrastructure, I would say communication infrastructure. This European is developing large programs also in cybersecurity and a digital program, and also clearly all the research on future communication system and networks, call it 6G, and so on and so forth. We also have a lot of attention on the verticals. We have one specific document identifying the challenge for all of these vertical sectors. I suggest you to double check our website. And we have also a lot of interest and attention to cyber ranges and simulation environments. Clearly, all these things at the lower TRL developed in Horizon Europe, and previously I would say that the similar topics are also in Horizon 2020. We are going also to foster Digital Europe program with specific threat management and cross-vertical platform systems, system for identity and privacy management, possibly reusing also truly European system, develop tools and support for the Cybersecurity Act that is mentioned also by Vito, and engineering and establishing engineering platform for trustworthy hardware and software. We are going also to develop several resilient digital infrastructure, and about the skills, we are fostering several communities and professional communities for increasing the number of jobs. Something that should be clearly stated is that there is a great lack of skills, and I think all of you, if you work in the sector, in general in the ICT sector, but particularly in the cybersecurity one, it's difficult to find skilled people, and we need to train many of them. And clearly, based on all these aspects, it is also possible and advisable to give policy and governance and recommendations also to European Commission and to your national legislators to improve the activities, and I would say also regional level to improve your activities. As EXO, we foster the European, the national, but also the regional approach. We think that also at the regional level, we should foster this kind of activities, and for instance, in Italy, in France, definitely, but as in many other countries, there is a strong push for having local cluster of excellence in cybersecurity. And this is additional and final recommendations that we did requested by the European Commission on the recovery fund, where basically the previous suggestion has been elaborated now, clearly linking those to the documents and the strategies that's been mentioned by Vito, the cybersecurity strategy, where actually the working group 6 that I coordinate is explicitly mentioned as one of the, let's say, key drivers. And so we suggest the development of threat intelligence system, risk management system, resilient crop vertical platform for interconnected infrastructure, for instance, for multimodal transport, securing DNS root system. We are cooperating also with Centre and with other organizations dealing with this, and clearly fostering secure communications, improving the 5G security and endpoint security, protection and secure end-to-end connectivity for digital services, including e-health and energy, protection of sellers, of e-commerce, and so on and so forth. About secure data, about the data strategy, the cybersecurity strategy, and the State of Union, we really foster end-to-end data protection, secure data management, data sovereignty, and several data usage control techniques that can be, let's say, used to empower the user to properly share the data. And clearly protect data manipulation from fake news. There is a strong attention from the European Commission on all the problems related to social media and hybrid threats, the one that puts together, let's say, cybersecurity attacks and the diffusion of fake news and so on. Then secure and trusted identity management, self-sovereign identity-based systems, and I mean, we all experimented with pandemic that the national ID management system were really pushed further. In Italy, the situation really improved quite a lot with the necessity from the people to access certain very relevant services only through let's say, national identity management systems. And clearly, we need to have a lot of programs for raising the awareness of the citizens, I would say also decision makers and skilled workforce. About decision makers, recently EXO issued a document that you can find in our website that put together the recommendations of the CISO in Europe, more than 100 CISO in Europe, about the priorities for the future in Europe. So thank you very much for your attention, and this is my concluding slide.
Thanks, Fabio. Very good. I don't see questions in the tab of the question, but I have a question for you, Fabio. Of course, it is related to artificial intelligence. So what is the role of artificial intelligence? I know EXO is working also on it in empowering EU cybersecurity. And actually, this is the easy part of the question. The difficult part is what are the risks of adopting AI in cybersecurity in terms of transparency, trustworthiness, and sovereignty?
Thank you very much for the question. As EXO, we have a sub-working group, and we are currently working on a technical paper exactly on AI. AI from the dimensions that you correctly point out. So first, you can use AI for security. You need also to make a secure AI, and you need to avoid that or detect the usage of AI for malicious aspects. All of these elements are there. A lot of interest is also now on explainability. That is a very interesting aspect of AI. So giving also some sort of logical reason or evidence that what you're doing is actually alongside or compliant with certain regulation. And this is a very interesting strands of research that also we are fostering EXO, and particularly involved also as a researcher of the National Research Council in these aspects. I think the situation is difficult. I think we need several experts, but it is absolutely booming. The fact that one of the free technical papers we are developing right now, and I hope it will be released in a couple of months, is about artificial intelligence and cybersecurity from these perspectives, tells you how much in EXO we consider that this is relevant. And the transparency, explainability, and robust AI are definitely keywords and research areas that all of us should address from several perspectives. I don't have a specific, let's say, solution to everything, but as EXO, I'm telling you that we identified this as a crucial area of intervention, or I would say an increased investigation.
Thanks, Fabio. I think there is not a comprehensive solution at the moment for all these challenges, but yeah, very, very good. Thanks again, Fabio, for your presentation and for the information that and also the very, very good insight that you provided. Okay, so I think now is the turn of Professor David Wallon, who is Associate Professor and Associate Director, Innovation of Oxford E-Research Center, where he leads two separate research groups, Energy and Environmental ICT, and Advanced Infrastructure and Cloud Computing. He is a member of the GCHQ, recognized Academic Center of Excellence in Cybersecurity, and the UK Space Agency Ground Segment Advisory Group. David, if you share the presentation.
Okay, can you see my presentation?
Not now, so try again.
Okay, let's entire screen. Are you seeing it now?
Yes, please.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me today. So I'm going to be presenting on behalf of Cyberwatching.eu, a support action funded through the through Horizon 2020 program that's been looking at building up the understanding and information about activities within the European cybersecurity research and innovation activities and within the landscape. So a key part of our activities has been the creation, first of all, of what is termed our European Project Hub. So this is a central portal, a central catalogue where we can collect together information about cybersecurity relevant projects that have been ongoing, that have been funded by both the European Union and latterly by different national governments from the EU 27, to actually allow those projects to disseminate their technical developments and the overall activities that the projects are focused on. You can see here the front page to the Project Hub, and I'd commend you to go and have a look, where you can search through the different projects that are registered with us, and we've got over 270 projects registered at the moment within the Hub. So why are we doing this, though? Well, you know, it is very important, of course, that we want to be able to allow different projects that have been supported in any number of different ways and may naturally not have a good connection to other activities to come together to share outputs, methods, and best practices. And what we mean by that is to cluster projects that maybe have similar goals, similar outcomes that they're trying to achieve, to ensure that the sum is greater than the individual parts. Of course, you know, when from a funder's point of view, we also want to be able to analyze different projects to see how their attributes and how they're actually their activities may be clustered together. Do I understand as a funder how effective some of my fundraising, my funding has been? You know, is there a particular domain within the cybersecurity landscape, for example, that I may want to favour in future because past areas have had significant funding over and above others? And of course, you know, one of the key parts of any project, I would always hope, is that they want, through the aims at the goals of sustainability, to actually publicize the products and outputs that they've generated so that people can reuse them. It is, of course, policy for, you know, for the European Commission, for EU H2020 funding, but also many national funding bodies also around open access to results, open source in terms of outputs of tools and services, and open data. So how have we done that? Well, the first thing we realized was that, of course, the cybersecurity landscape is incredibly complex. So we had to come up with a way of rationalizing the way this would look. And to do that, we developed our Cyberwatching, Cybersecurity and Privacy Research Taxonomy. And this was a way to try and segment the landscape in a way that we understood. This is actually developed from the taxonomy that we use internally in the university to segment our research. And as was mentioned in my introduction, we are a particularly leading research university in terms of cybersecurity. So we created within our taxonomy, 3 categories, you know, that we use to segment these: foundational trust, technical methods and risk management for trustworthy systems in cybersecurity and privacy, applications and user-orientated services, and then policy, governance, ethics, trust, and usability. 3 very orthogonal ways that you can view activities within cybersecurity. So that was the first level. And below each of those, we then made up, we then created our second level. And these were very much, these are much more targeted. And you can see here, for example, operational risk and analytics. Well, and by that I mean, you know, actually, can we develop an understanding about risk and harm from cyber attacks? Verification and assurance. So, you know, establishing levels of confidence in a system. That might be automatic, that might be manual, but actually, can we assert that the system is secure with some sort of mechanism? Secure systems and technology, and this is the big one. You know, this is about building security and privacy into technology. This might be specific tools and service very specifically designed around cybersecurity. But this is the one that we think of when we think of research and innovation in cybersecurity. Identity, behavior, ethics, and privacy. Well, cybersecurity and privacy is obviously many times how this domain is actually described, and therefore how we manage personal identity, how we behave when we are online is, of course, a key area for us to think about and a key area for research activities. National and international security and governance. Well, cybersecurity and privacy, as we heard from the first speaker, is something that is of key importance at a national and international level, particularly in terms of politics, but also defense, and and cybersecurity mixes in with key other policies and legal activities. And then, of course, finally, but not the least important, is the human aspects of cybersecurity. We see, of course, that one of the key importances around how successful cybersecurity activities are is how people interact with them. Everyone knows about phishing attacks and different types of cybersecurity attack that, of course, make use of social engineering and things like this. So we need to understand and segment these activities out as well. So, of course, we've collected through our hub our catalogue of cybersecurity and privacy projects. We've got the details of the projects. So our first aim at trying to segment the landscape was actually to try and assign one of the level 1 taxonomy categories to each of our projects. And you can see here that what we did was that every project was supposed to have a first rank relationship with one of those level 1 taxonomies, but every project could have further relationships. It could be associated with all 3 of those level 1 taxonomies. And following on from that and using principal component analysis, we actually came up with a visualization to understand how we could view or show the cybersecurity landscape. And unfortunately, I have to say, it was not particularly user-friendly. That you can see here that all of the projects that we had at that time within the catalogue are represented within the biplot on the left and the hierarchical clustering diagram on the right. Now, unless you're an expert in data science and analytics, that's not particularly useful. So we thought about actually what could we do better? What are the key objectives that we need to think about to improve understanding and visualization and presentation of the cybersecurity landscape? Now, of course, from my point of view, it has to have a single point of entry. It must be, you come to this one place to explore our representation of the research and innovation landscape. It's got to integrate with those other resources well that I talked about earlier. It has to integrate with the hub. It has to integrate well with online resources. It's got to be useful to different people that may wish to exploit it. I said that the first visualization really was only useful to a data scientist. It would take quite a lot of interpretation to present that to a policymaker. But what do I mean by different exploiters? It might be the projects themselves. It might be the European Commission, the funder. It may be a person that wants to reuse externally a product or service developed and wants to license it. Or even more key, it may be people that want to fund a particular activity's continued development so that Europe can actually create some unicorns. And then finally, it must create a clear and illustrative overview in one methodology of the landscape as a whole. as a viewer, you've got to be able to see the key information that we're presenting. The unfortunate thing about the biplot is it basically doesn't really tell you much at all. It doesn't present that key information, so which is hard. And it's got to be nice and easy to navigate, and we really want to be able to filter, not just present different segmentations of the data. So I came up with the idea that possibly borrowing from the ThoughtWorks presentation of tools and services, that we could use a technology radar. So, so that became the focus of how we were going to develop this further. So how do we present the information though? Well, the first one is that the visualization, well, a radar is a radial diagram. And of course, one of the things then that you can do to a circular thing is separate this into segments. So, we want to be able to see it in one go, all of the projects across all of the segments, but we want those segments to be clearly separate. So we created our radar. It has 6 segments, each of which represent one of the level 2 taxonomy terms. But you should be able to drill down into one of those segments and present it individually. The next one is, of course, that in a radar, the closer you get to the center, the more important or more relevant whatever is being viewed is. So we created this idea of actually having a ring methodology that was allowed to illustrate project age. And you can see here we have 5 rings: assess, trial, adopt, hold, and drop. And for active projects, it's the 3 innermost rings. And for finished projects, they then go to the outer 2 rings. And the important difference is that a project when it starts off is aimed to be assessed. You might try a product that is in trial. We would definitely suggest that things that are in the adoption ring are ready for utilization by people outside the project. You might then start thinking about replacing a project that's moved into hold, and you definitely would replace one that is in drop. And then finally, using a methodology that we developed within the project called the Market and Technological Readiness Levels, we allow projects to self-assess their readiness for market. And we wanted to illustrate this within the radar to show not only where the project was in time scale, but also how ready the product that project has is ready for market. We also obviously uniquely identify each of the projects. So in 2018, we started off with our first realization of the radar. And this is the autumn 2018 Cyberwatching technology radar. We'd already allocated all of the projects that we had in the catalogue, but at that point, you can see here that there's no color. There's no realization of any of the projects that have undergone an assessment for the market and technical readiness levels. But I'm going to concentrate on one project, project number 52. The project is called Ghost, but we'll see much more about it later on. And you can see here, it's just entered. It's in the assess ring at the moment. So this was autumn 2018. We then move into spring 2019. We can see here that some of the other projects have been assessed for MTRL scores, but project 52 Ghost is still sitting in assess. It's still in an early phase of its project. Autumn 2019, unfortunately there's a second blue ring there, but you can see that we're still in assess, but overall we can see that project 52 has a yellow assessment, so it's pretty average in its MTRL score, but at this point it is actually now assessed. So somebody that was looking at this could say, okay, so that project, the products from that project, we want to look at them, we want to look at them closely, and we will see that that project could be utilized. We'll keep that project on our own internal radar. The products from that project could be used. We get to spring 2020, the beginning of the pandemic, and we can see here actually that Project 52 has got all the way to adopt. So it's had a very quick transition between autumn 2019 to spring 2020, but also it's done a reassessment of its MTRL, its market and technical readiness level. And we can see here now actually that this is a project where it's at a timescale where we would expect to adopt the products that are produced by it, and that they are really, really ready for market. They are absolutely ready for use by people from outside the project. Now, autumn 2020, the project is, Ghost is still sitting in the individual, in the adopt ring at the moment. It's still sitting pretty. But one of the things we realized is, and I was able to show these to you very quickly and easily, is up until this point, we've been creating static visualizations of the technology radar. And we realized that for a number of reasons, mostly around the dynamic nature of the coming and going of projects, that wasn't that useful. We wanted to make something that was more responsive to the changing views of the data that was actually being used to underpin the radar. And therefore, we made a bit of a change, and we've gone to an active radar now. And I'm going to now, hopefully...
David, we are a bit out of time.
Okay, I just wanted to quickly show you. But for some reason, this is not okay. Okay, well, unfortunately, then I'm going to commend you to have a look at the Cyberwatching radar. Unfortunately, it sounds like we are out of time, so I'm now going to hand over. I'm going to say thank you, and I'm going to now hand over to my colleague Nick Ferguson from Trust IT Services. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, David. I think I would invite all the people to have a look at the radar directly in the site, because I think it's very, very, very interesting. Now I think we can move to Professor Nicola Ferguson, who is a senior project manager at Trust IT Services. He's the coordinator of the Cyberwatching project.
Hello there.
Yeah. Go.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. I've had a few problems with my bandwidth today. And thank you, David, for a great overview of the evolution of the radar, which, please do go and visit the link. It's an, interactive, fully dynamic radar now. That's what it's become. All the projects are there, and it's managed by the projects. This is the important point. The projects can upload and update their data, and also their market readiness, which is something that we have been assessing as well, which David, of course, mentioned. So this is an important point on the Cyberwatching project. We have a focus towards the research projects, but we also have a focus on the market, and really trying to provide an avenue for projects who are often targeting members of the digital single market, and in particular SMEs, to get visibility. So if you can go to my next slide, please. So I work for an SME. The SME Trust IT Services is based in Pisa, where we were a micro enterprise until very recently, where now we have more than 50 people working. But, we really understand the stress and strains that SMEs and micro enterprises go through every day. Time is really money, and everything you do has to be towards staying afloat and staying alive, as the 70s song goes. So the SME landscape in Europe is highly important. I think we all know that. It forms the backbone of Europe's economy. and more SMEs are being encouraged to digitize, invest in an e-commerce platform, or to go online. But often they lack the resources or knowledge in cybersecurity. They may often underestimate vulnerabilities and the risks they face. There are many more regulations, so there's more things that you can do to make your products more secure. And of course, the Cybersecurity Act and the Cybersecurity Competence Center and the national network, organizations such as EXO are important steps in the path towards a more trusted market in Europe. It's important to note that cybersecurity can be a market differentiator, with certification a prerequisite for many public procurements, for example. But it's a complex path for your average micro SME. Next slide, please. So, there's a lot said about the lack of investment by SMEs. It takes time, it takes resources, and it takes often companies don't have the skills on tap to really invest here. That means they are vulnerable, more vulnerable than larger companies to attacks. Many hope that they can wing it. They think they're a bit too small. There's more interesting fish in the sea, like larger organizations. And often cybersecurity is seen as a technology problem, so an issue for the IT guy, which often, of course, we know it isn't. It's all about your whole staff. With an average cost of £25,000 or per cyber attack, often a company can also close down as well. So it's a scary problem. So if you go to the next slide, please. So how can we address this? And we've tried to address this a bit in our project. And so I'll talk about some of the issues that we're addressing in our project. Okay, not now. Sorry, my son's just come in the room. So the first concerns raising awareness and encouraging companies to be more aware. Now, a company which sells or commercializes products or processes or services can, of course, rely on a consulting company, and they're very important players in this field in terms of supporting a small company. But an important second point is self-assessment. So a company taking time to look internally at what their products are, their processes or their services, and really taking time to think about how to protect these critical assets. Because of course you can't protect everything, but those are the things that you want to protect. Of course, the last step, of course, is certification, which is a complex road to reach, but it can be an important major step for any company, let alone an SME. Certification gives you an independent third party saying that you meet their requirements. So what our project has really looked at is trying to provide to fill the gap, which is the self-assessment phase. Please note that these three steps are clearly different. As you know, they don't replace each other. These are three steps. So the self-assessment and providing something which is robust and provides trusted guidance from leading experts in the field. This is what we've tried to address in our project. If you go to the next slide, please. So in the next few slides, I'm going to show you some of these resources which are available online and are at an affordable, are easy to access for SMEs, and we promote these through SME networks too. The first one, which will be released in June, is the Cybersecurity Seal. So So this is something which is basically a very robust self-assessment resource. It's based on a series of questions which an SME would carry out, and is built on relevant parts of regulations or existing standards like 27001. So it covers a number of topics in a concise manner to ensure that the SME assimilates clear concepts and really helps to smooth the path to them carrying out further action and potentially being a bit more advised or having a better understanding of the landscape they're working in and the importance of potentially looking at certification. So it's something which is important for them to assess and subsequently showcase their cybersecurity posture, and it lowers the barrier for SMEs in starting a general process of certification. So this has been done. It's important that a couple of logos there. We have SGS, who are not part of our consortium, but are a member of AEI, which is one of our partners. And of course, they're a leading organization in the certification field. So, you know, having their stamp on this seal was very important for its weight to SMEs. And we have an English version and a Spanish version, because this will be sustained by the Cybersecurity Innovation Hub in Spain. So we're very, very excited about this. It comes out in June, and it's a really important resource, we think. If you go to the next slide, please. I'm going to show very lightly a couple of other resources. One is on risk management, which has been provided by Aon, one of our project partners. And again, this provides a checklist and a set of recommendations on how a company can better manage and analyze and act upon risks and be better informed when approaching a cyber insurance broker like Aon. Next slide, please. With the GDPR coming into force in the lifetime of our project, we have also provided two resources. One very practical in terms of helping a company write their information notice, and the other one, you know, really talking frankly to SMEs on the language that they understand. You know, how much at risk am I of from a sanction, a GDPR sanction, with more and more sanctions coming into force. There's one in particular in Italy at the moment about a very small company. I think it's a news agent which has been hit with a whopping fine because they had a newsletter and they hadn't followed the guidelines. So it's, you know, a very small micro business being highly impacted by that. Next slide, please. So in the bigger picture, David mentioned the radar, the number of projects we collaborate with and we try to form clusters around, and we try to also give visibility in a marketplace as well, where, you know, the project assets can have their own level of visibility with other results, and also with SMEs who have also registered on our marketplace. And many of them are referenced in the resources I mentioned above. We've tried to make reference to what is in our marketplace in some of the recommendations, in particular in the GDPR temperature tool. And it's the interactive aspect of the marketplace which allows projects and companies to promote and connect, which has really met a number of the requirements that EXO have for their upcoming SME registry. And I'm pleased to say that the marketplace will be sustained by EXO, who will expand on it and build on it with some very interesting activities that they've been doing through the Cyber Valleys pilot. And there'll be, you know, a very large number of SMEs, we hope, using the EXO SME registry, and for us as a project, sustaining our marketplace and providing visibility to the various resources on there. So with that, I've just got one more slide, which is about some upcoming events that we have. We have the consultation meeting coming up in June. We have a number of dates where we try to get all of the projects together in the unit, because as David said, we're a CSA. We are waiting for confirmation from the Commission on a couple of these dates, and we have a very interesting webinar two interesting webinars next week, one in collaboration with the React project. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Nicholas. Even if we are a bit late, I have a question for both. I think you can both reply. I think with different perspective. One, what are the next steps of the project and also of the observatory in terms of evolution of the radar? So maybe this is a question for you both. And the other point is in terms of services for the small and medium enterprise, for instance. If you can please answer in 30 seconds each.
Yep. So, David, do you want me to, or do you want?
No, do you want to go first, and then I'll?
Okay. Yeah. So so Cyberwatching finishes in July, but we have a consortium which are committed to continuing a number of activities. One of which is the the Cyberwatching website and the hub, and trying to get the radar to be continually updated. The radar is I think one of the best results I've been involved with in a research project. So it's an extremely useful tool. We've been in discussions with the Commission and how it could be used by them, but it needs to be updated. It needs to be continually updated. So this is something that, for example, Trust IT, where we will be continuing to maintain this and sustain this by continuing our support to the community and outreach activities, and really trying to keep the community we've built together. So it's an important investment as an SME. We want to stay here, and we see also the resources for SMEs are also to be sustained by through our partner AEI. These are good resources. They're very, very solid, and they need an SME audience, and this digital innovation hub is going to be an important resource for attracting SMEs.
Okay, thank you.
So just from the point of view of the radar itself, then the radar platform itself is continuing to be developed through a new project. So we have a new support action called softwareforum.eu, which will be utilizing the radar technology that we've developed and therefore supporting it further. We'll continue to work with Trust IT, as we historically have done now for something getting on for 12 years, to ensure that product is actually maintained at a technical side on their activities. And as I said, we are a world-leading research institution in cybersecurity, so we will be looking at how we describe the cybersecurity landscape and how we understand the differentiation and taxonomy behind it.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to kindly invite the people to make questions to the speaker, because at the moment I don't see any question in the tab. So please, if you have any question, put the question there. Now, okay, I would move to the second speaker, Professor Jano Wolfstall. I hope I pronounced it well. Professor Jano Wolfstall is the founder and director of the IBM Security Center of Excellence in Beersheba, where his research team, in collaboration with Ben-Gurion University, is developing cutting-edge technology and solutions to overcome advanced cyber threats. Professor Wolfstall has a major role in setting IBM's security research strategy and accelerating the delivery of security innovation into IBM's portfolio, product portfolio. Finally, in 2018, he received the Best of IBM Award, granted annually by the IBM CEO. So, Yaron, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for the audio problems earlier. So good afternoon. It is really a pleasure to virtually meet you all and speak at the FIWARE Cybersecurity Day. My name is Yaron Wolfstall, and I'm the head of IBM Cybersecurity Center of Excellence in Israel. I'm going to present to you today one of the main projects in our center, which addresses a very important security problem at the heart of the modern Security Operations Center. Specifically, I will be talking about the challenge of threat investigation and how to automate it. Next slide, please. Just before we go deeper, a few words of introduction. Since 2014, our research lab is based in Beersheba, a national center of cybersecurity technology in the southern part of Israel, right near Ben Gurion University, which is also our partner in many research projects. The main mission of our center is to be an innovation arm for the global IBM company in the area of enterprise security. This means that we are missioned to provide IBM and customers with technologies that will solve the security problems and threats of tomorrow. Among other topics, we do a lot of work in AI, threat management, and cloud security, and the project you will hear about today brings all of those together. This project builds upon a platform called Cloud Pak for Security, which made it possible to achieve the results that I will describe. Next slide, please. So let us look at the challenges of the modern Security Operations Center. The most common complaint of security managers is the flood of alerts. In fact, there are many more alerts than the Security Operations Center could actually handle. And to make things worse, many of these alerts are false positives, and there is no good way to prioritize which alerts should be looked at first and how much time should be spent on each alert. It is mostly based on intuition and experience, which is the next pain point, the shortage of qualified staff. This is an industry-wide problem, and companies are having a real tough time finding experienced staff, and they end up often occupying people with relatively short experience, like students perhaps. Not only the relevant domain knowledge is missing, sometimes people in the Security Operations Center also need to learn about the organization that they are defending. It is very hard to keep an organizational memory in this way and to improve the processes. On top of that, the security staff needs to handle way too many tools and technologies. Cloud deployments in particular are becoming more and more popular, and each of them has its own security dashboard with different terminology and granularity of monitoring and alerts. And those are even disconnected from the traditional on-premise security solutions, which are also very many. For example, the analyst needs to work with the SIEM to look at events, to manage responses in another system, to do deep dive of data protection products, and look also at identity and access management dashboards, and correlate all this data with external data from threat intelligence. All this in order to understand what's happened. All those challenges get even worse in the Security Operations Center with the increasing threat landscape. The attack surface becomes bigger and bigger with cloud deployments and employees connected through virtual private networks, sometimes using their own personal computers and mobile devices. Also, the attackers are becoming more and more sophisticated. They are currently finding the COVID-19 situation a very good time to work from home and get things done. Organizations that yesterday didn't even know about remote access are now doing this, and attackers are finding this a good source of income. Next slide, please. So with all those challenges, the one business problem that this project addresses is the bottleneck of investigating security threats and incidents. The life cycle of managing cyber threats roughly includes 4 main stages: monitoring, detection, investigation, and response. Some of them can be greatly automated and have been automated, and there are actually existing good tools for monitoring and detection, for example. But investigation is different. This is a central activity in the Security Operations Center work. The investigation of threats was traditionally done manually by experts. This is very much related to the problem of security skill shortage that we just discussed. The new capabilities I'll present to you make investigation largely automated. Next slide, please. So looking at the task of threat investigation, it is indeed very complex. The organization may have various kinds of sensors for security events, and some of them may even do some limited amount of analytics that can do things like localized anomaly detection, for example. But each of those tools and sensors typically only sees a local and small part of the big picture. The security analyst has to do a complex detective work. They have to dig through all the information from the network and from outside intelligence and figure out what's going on. Is the organization under attack? What type of attack is this? Or is this a false alarm? The job of the analyst is like solving a jigsaw puzzle with many patterns. Some are real jigsaw patterns, some are false jigsaw patterns, and often also missing patterns. And it has been traditionally been a highly manual and intensive work. So this is the problem our research focuses on. And the purpose of the work is to boost analyst effectiveness and give them a way to quickly build and expand their knowledge and meaning of what they are looking at and relate what they see to a known frame of reference of attacks so they can assess it and also communicate it in and out of the organization. Next slide, please. To carry out this project, we used a suitable platform from IBM called Cloud Pak for Security. This is an open security platform that allows to connect and integrate all the security tools and data sources that the organizational security operations center needs from any source and any vendor in order to generate deep security insights. In this system, it is possible to connect various feeds, tools, capabilities from all domains like data security, threat intelligence, network and system and application, all in a cloud environment on top of the Red Hat OpenShift open source infrastructure. I do welcome you to try it. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, our goal in this project was to boost analyst effectiveness and give analysts a way to quickly understand the meaning of many security pieces of information that they are looking at the Security Operations Center and relate what they see to a known frame of reference of attacks so they can assess it and communicate insights. They can look at it, know what it is, and have conclusions and recommendations they can share with the organization. To this end, we have developed an automatic threat investigation algorithm that builds an attack graph by connecting the dots and making the trees from the forest, or making the forest from the trees, actually. Let's see how we do this. So this here on this slide, this is how events look like in a modern security operations center. A lot of disconnected alerts from different security systems, and sometimes they are presented on one screen, sometimes even on different screens. Next slide, please. So to create the attack story, our algorithm typically starts with a single artifact, a single security event, maybe more, like an event of malware or IP, malicious RP. This artifact can be any alert. The point here is that we start from a limited number of those events. As I said, malicious URL, IP, or file signature. Next slide, please. What the algorithm does is it models the attack as a graph, which we iteratively expand as the investigation of the incident progresses. The graph nodes are security artifacts, which we represent as sticks objects. Sticks is a standard form of representing threat intelligence information. Working with standard representation makes it easy for us to parse, extract, and connect and represent the artifacts. Basically, our algorithm does graph expansion to build a concrete attack graph. We start with those basic artifacts and attributes, and we iteratively expand them according to the context that is provided by the data sources. Next slide, please. One important context which the algorithm uses to build and expand the attack graph is the information from the internal user environment. This is the internal context. So this information which we use in building the graph is coming from various security scanners and organization catalogs and tools that are integrated and accessible in a normalized manner through the platform I mentioned, the Open Cloud Pak for Security. Typically, the internal context, the environment context, will include things like host metadata, operating system, type of assets, mapping of IP to host names, database and network classifications, all the internal knowledge that is related to organization. This is the internal context that the algorithm is using to build the graph. Next slide, please. The second type of information which the algorithm uses to build the attack graph is the external context. This information comes as feeds of threat intelligence that are also integrated into our environment. The context information, whether internal or external, contributes to enrichment or decoration of the graph nodes, as well as to introduce new nodes. So here's how the data is represented. It is roughly simple, small piece of an example that does not really represent a real investigation. Real investigation is far more complex and large. Next slide, please. Another key aspect of our algorithm is forensic investigation while building the attack graph. The paradigm that we are working on is that all the data is stored in a variety of security systems. There is no single data lake that combines all of the information pieces. So when the algorithm needs another piece of information, it is using federated search, and it performs the investigation through queries of forensic nature that it sends to the various information sources that connect to Cloud Pak for Security, to the environment. During the investigation process, the graph is expanded to contain more and more relevant security events and evidences from the raw data. As I said, again, this is very schematic. In reality, the users, the analysts, will have a far greater number of events, and therefore the graph can diverge very quickly, even when retrieving data from only a small time window. The algorithm knows how to create very focused queries and guide the investigation of the threat to a particular direction that has the most potential to contain attack-related information. And if this wasn't hard enough, consider the fact that the investigation algorithm is only exposed to the partial picture it saw until any point. Next slide, please. Because of those difficulties that I mentioned, we are also incorporating domain knowledge in the decision-making process, in the graph expansion process. And we perform risk assessment as we go. So those risk assessments help to limit the size of the algorithm. One more thing to do is that major security events are mapped or classified to the MITRE attack techniques and tactics framework. This is a well-known standard or de facto standard for representing attacks, and this adds additional clues on what might have happened during the attack. The investigation of the attack graph will end up with a bigger graph of connected artifacts. Some of them are relevant, some of them belong to other attacks potentially that we have followed. Overall, what the algorithm will do after it has investigated the attack, it converges it to a known form of attack from the MITRE attack framework, the standard framework for attacks, to present to the organization. Next slide, please. Another major aspect of our algorithm is attack chain reasoning. Our goal is to reveal a meaningful attack story that will contain the impact, the initial compromise, and any lateral movement that was involved that we can find. And so we are able, with this kill chain reasoning that is also borrowed from the MITRE attack framework, to identify attacks and be able to attach the stage in the kill chain that they relate to and the specific use case and form and class of attacks that it is belonging to. This has been a relatively broad research project where we are exploring how to solve all those problems. When doing so, we are investigating the algorithm development, and we are using various techniques in many fields like artificial intelligence, graph theory, and knowledge management. Not all. This is not all. Next slide, please. We wanted also to make the results very consumable by the human analyst. As I mentioned, common frameworks such as MITRE ATT&CK framework are very helpful. So we have modeled our user experience based on that. Here you can see a screenshot of the result of the algorithm, graphically presenting the attack kill chain in a manner that will be clear to anyone familiar with the MITRE framework. And the main idea is that all this graph expansion and threat investigation process is done even before the security analyst had a chance to explore the initial incident that were surfaced by his alert system. This is adding to automation. This is adding automation to the threat investigation workflow. Next slide, please. The last one. So to sum up, what we're doing is we are expanding a graph based on an open system, and we have a solution to the bottleneck of threat investigation that is using standards and frameworks. As I've shown, we are doing this using this Cloud Pak for Security platform, which has the capability to consolidate data coming from different sources. All this started as a research project, and in early 2021, this year, we delivered it as a product, which is now accessible under the name Threat Investigation. In this stage in the project, we are open to collaboration with partners interested in testing this capability. Thank you very much. Happy to take any questions. Next slide, please.
Okay, thanks, Yaron. Very, very clear, and I would say the system seems to be very powerful. I don't see questions, so as usual, I will make a question. And the question is related to the human factor. I mean, investigation is typically an activity in which people put knowledge, put insight, put intuition. What is the role of the people, the humans, in the investigation, in a tool which is called automatic investigation, threat investigation? Yes. So what is their role?
Yeah, great question. Thank you very much. This is a productivity tool. This is an automation tool for the Security Operations Center. Essentially, the role of the analyst after the algorithm has produced a hypothesis, the role of the analyst is to look at the hypothesis, one or more that are produced by the tool, and verify it and map it to what they actually see. The tool is only good as the automation that it used, and is only good as far as the inputs that were fed to it. But the analyst typically has even more know-how, information, familiarity with the organization. So our vision was, let us give the analyst the most information that we can automate, so we'll be able to assign his know-how, expertise, and human ingenuity to look at the results of the machine and add the human touch that he need to add in the end, add their own judgment, human judgment.
Okay. Actually, there is a question in the tab. It's not fully clear to me, but I will read. Maybe you can also read. What role could play sharing the same data models for reporting the security incident?
I also am not sure I understand the question, but I will comment on sharing of data models. I think sharing of security expertise and models is very important. Part of our work, we invest in identifying techniques and formats and frameworks to do sharing. Sharing of models, sharing of insights.
Okay, thanks. Okay, thanks again, Yaron. Now
Thank you very much.
Thanks. I would move to Paolo Roccetti. Paolo is the head of the cybersecurity unit in engineering within the Research and Development Lab. He coordinated some projects. Two of them are Compact and Hermeneut. Of course, both are on cybersecurity. The first one to improve the resilience of local public administration against cyber attacks, and Hermeneut is to assess cyber risk also on intangible assets of organization. So Paolo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Vito. Thank you also to FIWARE and to Cyberwatching.eu for organizing this conference. It's a pleasure to be here. So, let me introduce, as Vito said, I'm the head of Cybersecurity Research Unit in his lab. My speak is about the emerging challenges in cyber risk assessment and management. So just to set up the context, on the left, you can see the classical risk governance approach. So you usually have a risk perception when you realize that you have a cyber risk. Then there is assessment phase when you discuss and you assess how much the risk, what is the probability and the impact that the threat materializes. And then the third phase is the risk management, when you take countermeasures. And well, the approach you see depicted is the large, the one that is largest used at the moment. So you apply countermeasures when the risk already materializing. So my speak is about how we can, what are the things we should take into account to improve this way of governing risk, cyber risks in particular. So the three questions are: what is the cyber risk? How we can properly assess and effectively manage it? Okay, so starting from the definition of the cyber risk, I've took a couple of the definitions. You can find there are already a number of them. I took the one from RSA because I think that it highlights the fact that the risk is related to an organization, and this was the main idea until the recent time when we realized that the risk is not limited to an organization, but is something that involves all the players that are interacting in the cyberspace on a given supply chain, on a given sector, and so on. On the right side, you see the definition from the NIST. And on this part, the interesting part is the fact that the risk depends on cyber resources that have a presence in cyberspace, and this presence may be not continue. So there are risks that appear and disappear depending on which links are you enabling within the cyberspace. So to present the challenges, to present the first challenge, let me start from a past case, that is the Marriott International data breach from 2018. There have been also a recent one in 2020, but the 2018 is very interesting because it was at that time one of the three largest data breach occurred, or at least of which we are aware. And now it's the data about this breach are quite consolidated. So it was discovered very late, and this is not very good. But it was, and it is still common to discover this kind of data breach very late. Now the estimated cost is quite stable, meaning Marriott had a fine of $23 million related to this breach. And the interesting thing is that while most of the fines were covered by the cyber insurance that Marriott had at that time, Marriott felt that they should add something in addition to their customer, and they added 1 year of endpoint protection, a subscription of a cybersecurity endpoint protection tool, which the cost was $100 per customer per subscription. So of course I think they will got some discount given the huge amount of potential clients and customers. So, but this gives really an idea of what Marriott didn't intend to assess when they stipulated the cyber insurance, and it is essentially the estimation of cyber risk on intangibles, meaning the impact that cyber attacks may have on intangible assets of organizations. This is still a challenging task, this estimation, because first of all, there are a number of intangible assets to take into account, and there is no a clear and a shared understanding of how does what are those intangibles, how to split them, how are they connected and among them, and not only among them, but also on the business processes and on the other aspects of an organization. So this is one thing that we tried in one of our past projects, the Hermeneut project that also Vito was mentioning, is to create a map of the different consequences that, in this case, it's a financial insurance company, had as a consequence of a data breach. So there are, of course, direct losses related to the fact that maybe data are leaked. There are indirect loss on intangible assets like the brand reputation, and there are related costs. So the consideration of all these domino effects, this cascading risk and cascading effects, it's very difficult. Also taking into account that now IT and OT, so information technology and operation technologies, are very well interconnected. So the modeling of those potential consequences of the cyber attack on intangibles is very difficult. In the Hermeneut project, we tried a top-down approach. So essentially what we did is to start from the balance sheet of the organization. And we did this, we created a tool that is able to take this information, evaluate the intangible capital based on the economic performance and the other indicators of the organization, and then splitting this value among the different intangibles that the organization indicates as relevant. And then from this, it calculates the simulation of the losses and the impact. This is a top-down approach, but now in another initiative, the Protect Me initiative that we're participating to, we're trying to follow a different approach, so a bottom-up approach where the analysis starts from the modeling of the infrastructure of the assets, and then is, I would say, mapped on the intangible assets that the organization considers very important. So these are two different approaches. Not yet clear how effective are both. What is the effectiveness and what is how we can combine both to reach a more accurate estimation of the effect of cyber incident and cyber attacks on intangibles. Moving on, another aspects that we are considering, for instance, is that the assessing the social engineering risks. And we did this as part of the Cybersec for Europe initiative. That is a large initiative. Most of you are probably aware. One of the 4 pilots the Commission is funding for cybersecurity, for the cybersecurity, strengthening cybersecurity in Europe. And in this context, what we did is, I would say, a traditional simulation of a phishing campaign. a phishing campaign in a large LPA. The interesting part is that the target was quite large. So we spent a lot of time in creating really a simulation that was well balanced in terms of the hook. We created the target set that we selected to be representative, the date time of the simulation, and so on. So it was very well considering all these aspects, including also the fingerprints of the software that were used to access the target website and to include credentials and so on. So we also spent time to anonymizing results and so on. Then we discovered that this was not the real challenge in the end, but the real challenge was to include the result of the assessment within the cybersecurity risk profile of the organization, because this is another aspect that I think is quite challenging. Meaning the CISO, they, as has been already said, they have a lot of tools. Yaron pointed also out this, and this is very difficult to reconcile all the different results that you get from those tools, because you can conduct assessment and you can manage risk at different levels, physical, operational technologies, information technologies, also including the human side of security. Then there is the organizational, but not only, also the supply chain and sectoral level may be involved. So, and you can do this through different methodologies from different providers. So really, it's difficult. It's quite like it was the frag tool in the old Windows. So when you have multiple bits of data in your drive, and you had to put them together to make them well organized and give them a sense. So in this case, we also try to, as part of the CyberSec for Europe initiative, to define a roadmap for a progressive cyber risk management approach. It is part of our contribution and is mainly concerning smart cities and public administrations, but I think it could have a value also beyond that sector. Then moving on.
Paolo, go a bit faster, please.
Okay, so just to be fast, I will jump this and we'll go to the third challenge. That is the assessment and management of risks that at the moment are done locally, mainly, while we think that the assessment should be done globally by including not only economic impacts, but also the different stakeholders, and also considering the different priorities they may have. So in this regard, the Cityscape project is experimenting how to include the non-economic impacts when assessing the cyber risks and the impact of cyber risks. And while the fourth challenge is about the estimation of the effectiveness of cyber risk mitigations, meaning it's very difficult to estimate a priori before adopting it how much a cyber risk mitigation will be effective. On this, there are models appearing. So they're based mainly on simulation and machine learning, but they still requires deep knowledge of the market and of the organization that wants to adopt it. So what we are doing again in the Cityscape project is that to create super tools to ease the assessment of how much given mitigation will be effective before buying it and spending the money. So there are the four key takeaways from my side. So take into account the intangibles, keep your approach to cyber risk consistent, assess the impact globally and manage it locally, and they estimate the effectiveness of cyber mitigations before buying it. Thank you. That's all from my side. So,
thanks, Paolo. I see a question in the tab. I think it's not specific for you. I will put the question on the table, and maybe I think it could also be the question for Fabio or even for Yaron. Is quantum computing a threat for cybersecurity in the next years?
well,
This is Fabio.
Yeah, please, Fabio.
Please go on. No, please go on. I mean,
you're much more expert than me, so I will.
No, I'm not an expert in quantum. I'm not an expert. Definitely, in terms of mathematics, the crypto community is already ready, I would say, for the quantum advent. People in industry are already considering how much could it cost to migrate from a standard cybersecurity solution to quantum-resistant ones. I don't think currently we have really quantum computers able to crack, but I could not say algorithms. At the same time, quantum communication is a not area of research, and quantum, and I would say research on quantum computers is rapidly growing. So I would expect that in the next 5-10 years, it is something to be considered by industry. I can tell you that when I started to do these things, 2013, quantum was definitely not in the radar of large corporates, and now in the last 3-4 years, it is in the radar. So I think we must be ready for the transition. At least it should be in our radar.
Okay, thanks, Fabio. Okay, we can move. I would like to move to Paolo Secondo Crosta from Italtel. Paolo is the responsible of the Innovation Lab research program in Italtel. Please, Paolo, share the screen. And
yes, I cannot.
Yeah,
actually,
maybe Paolo. Okay, now you can.
Great, Vito. Sorry, select. Okay. So here we go. Vito, how long can I talk? Because we are a bit late, I understand. So please give me...
You should have 10 minutes,
10 minutes
plus something for questions. So
okay.
Try to do all your best.
I try. Okay. Thanks, Vito, for giving me the floor, of course. And good afternoon to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Many thanks to the organizer for the invitation, and thank you all for joining the webinar. Of course, today I would like to share very quick thoughts about possible application and exploitation of the GUARD project. I will briefly show the main value that we see in the project, the value proposition possible in this moment, the market sector closer to a possible adoption, and finally, if we will have time, further extended solution based on the GUARD platform. So my name is Paolo Crosta. As Vito said, I am responsible for the Innovation Lab and research programs in Italtel. Let me about Italtel, let me share only an information. We were founded in 1921, and this year we celebrate our anniversary. 100 years is a long time, not easy to reach, especially in technology world. So we are proud of that, of course. We consider cybersecurity one of the most important topics in our activities, both on research side and innovation side, and this is also the reason why we decided a couple of years ago to join the GUARD project. And we are active in the cybersecurity market, especially in Europe and in Latin America in terms of geographical areas. And I would like to focus your attention on 4 macro areas that we consider key for the future. ICT infrastructure, of course. We believe that this is the starting point for all security assessment and improvement. OT protection, as Paolo said before, security of OT infrastructure, especially in manufacturing, but in general in many industrial sectors, is crucial for business already today, of course. Application security, I mean security of application infrastructure, of data, also in hybrid environments, for example, cloud computing, 5G networks, as well as in many other vertical sectors, of course. Last but not least, managed security services, as very well Professor Yaron said before. Very, very important to be able to switch to a service-oriented approach based on as-a-service paradigm, automated, and so on. That means that security operations, server, SOC, and network operation center are becoming key elements in this transition. As we will see later, probably all these aspects are important also for the GUARD project and for the platform that we are developing in GUARD. So now, where is the main value of the GUARD project? We know that the recent global pandemic has accelerated the digital transformation everywhere. As a side effect, we are seeing an exponential increase of cyber risks due to the growing complexity and multi-domain of the new business chains that we are building together, of course. So the ICT industry needs to introduce a new architecture and new patterns to bring more agility in many industrial sectors and to support creation of longer, as said Fabio at the beginning, and more complex supply and business chains. Within these major market trends, the GUARD project is characterized, in our opinion, by 4 interesting things. The first is innovation in terms of architecture, holistic approach, technologies. We have no time, of course, now to explain everything, but this is for us very, very important. Second, security and privacy principle and approach based and perfectly in line with the European Union security strategy and policy in this domain. Openness towards new communication technologies, integration of multi-actors and multi-domains, integration of new services and application together with the lower layers, infrastructure layer, etc. But also an extremely important end-to-end approach, not only focused on the platform layer, but focus on a full assurance and protection of the entire business service chain. This last aspect is, in our opinion, very, very important. So, next step forward, why the GUARD project or the GUARD platform can be useful in, we say, almost any markets. We have identified at least 4 reasons that I would like to share with you. The first comes from the big evolution, we can say revolution, of course, of the ICT-enabled markets due to the digital transformation based on cost reduction, more agility, more collaboration, optimization of processes, of products, and so on. As a consequence, from a technical point of view, there is a big interest for switching quickly to a service-centric paradigm, ICT-centered and based on as-a-service approach. And this is exactly the reason why GUARD is important in our opinion. We need new approaches to the protection of this new type of systems. Second reason, business chains are increasingly long and complex, and actors are increasingly diversified, with the new relevant role for external resource and service providers. Think about, for example, the role of a cloud provider or edge resource provider, and so on. Third, the value of processes and related criticity. On the other hand, they must be monitored in real time, but also protected to avoid big mistakes until real disasters, as unfortunately we know. Finally, the value of data. We already are in the so-called data era, or data economy, and related sensitivity. Data volume and data velocity are increasing. Multiple stakeholders and new stakeholders need and want to share data between them, with the aim to make the most of data, especially according and using AI paradigm. So, for all these reasons, we believe that the GUARD project can be very interesting for many players in the cybersecurity market, and also in many contexts, in many areas, and of course in many market sectors. As already mentioned, we are working in several vertical markets that we think can be beneficial from GUARD project. The first that I try to present is smart grid, a smart energy market. Why this first sector? Because in this specific market, I'm thinking especially about utilities. ICT has brought important technical, business, and social innovation. For example, we know that many of them are addressing new markets, or the same market, but in a completely new way. Think, for example, the agri-food sector for them. At the same time, they manage critical infrastructure with many actors involved and a great potential related to the data that they are able to collect everywhere in their systems. So GUARD fits perfectly to this scenario, both for the plurality of actors, the criticity of the service, until the sensitivity of data. In particular, we are working, as you can see, on a project involving a distributed system operator, a DSO in Italy. We believe that several GUARD features could provide a significant improvement to the data and application. Unfortunately, I reached the time. We can see other cases, use cases, smart manufacturing, smart government, smart cities, and a security operation center, but I think that we have no time. I have a last slide about possible future activities and research starting from current activity in GUARD. And I would like to mention the integration of secure and trusted communication technology, just mentioned, like blockchain, IDS approach, but also quantum secure communication technology, like QKD, quantum key distribution, in which, as Italtel, we are working in Italy and also in Europe. I cannot avoid to mention AI application, because they have a lot of new security needs to protect algorithms, data, training processes, AI model, and so on. So several important points for future research and innovation activities. Many other things, unfortunately, we have not enough time. I hope I was able to provide some interesting information. Anyway, I remain available for question, clarification, and okay, feel free to contact me on LinkedIn or in the project. So many thanks for attending, and many thanks for your attention.
Thanks, Paolo. I think we will also have the chance to have a look at a couple of use cases of the GUARD project just in a few minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
In a second, I would say.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't see questions. I have only one. If you can please answer in 30 seconds, even if the question is quite, you can discuss one day if you want. The point is the interdependencies. You talked about several sectors which are quite complex. Is the interdependency part addressed in GUARD, or is something that you see as an evolution or something that you can work on in the future?
No, I think that this is an important point because, as you said, and probably as we will see in few minutes, in the project we are addressing some specific cases, but our approach is based on not only these specific cases, as I try to, let's say, to prove during my presentation, but with let's say, with an approach that has in mind the integration, the interconnection between different sectors that for sure have some specificity, but in the field of cybersecurity, they can share all these issues. They can share and they can improve itself with sharing data, with sharing methods, with sharing, let's say, risk also in themselves. So this is the approach also of inside the project.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks again. Now we'll move to two use cases. The first one is on mobility. Cornelio Hopman, technical lead from WABCOM, is an experienced cloud and IoT architect working on security and distributed system. Paolo, if you unshare the screen, I think Cornelio, okay, thanks. Please, Cornelio, can you? Okay.
Yes. So I'm here to present you the use case number 1 in the project GUARD. And let's try to see how we add an AS to IoT. A little bit to myself, I'm Cornelio Hopman, an open source advocate. I jumped on the cloud hype train around 7 years ago with OpenStack. Did a couple of years of industrial IoT in Hamburg and joined WABCOM in 2019 to expand and manage the LoRaWAN infrastructure. To our mobility use case, as you can see, we have gateways around the city, and we're collecting metrics around the city. We have devices placed in buses, and it's a little bit of a complex system. So how does that look like? First, we define the application as a 3-layer stack IoT. The first layer is the data collecting layer. We have the sensors inside the buses, sensors distributed around the city. Then we have the next layer, the network layer. First, our LoRaWAN network with Wi-Fi connectivity or LTE, or in most of the cases over our own fiber optics network around the city. And those connect to our messaging buses. And finally, we have the information layer, the application presented to the final consumers of the service. That can be the citizens of Wolfsburg, or weather services, or transportation services. And also provide information to machines through machine-to-machine interfaces. On the network layer, we have the gateways distributed around the city, communicating over MQTT with the services in our data center. We have a microservice approach to servicing the different parts of the network. And we have a strong focus on monitoring the network. So as you can see, we have the gateways in, I think, around 150 square meters of service area distributed around the city. To the information layer, the application itself, it's provided by our partner in the project, JIG Software of Spain. They have also a microservice approach to solving our requirements, and they build strongly on open source, on an open source stack provided by the FIWARE Foundation. With our mobility use case, we want to provide sort of real or near real-time information to the citizens of Wolfsburg, where the buses are right now, so that they can better plan their trip. Now, to the issue with providing this service, you've seen that we have multiple parts, starting with the gateways, the devices, the data center. So what is the issue? Kids with masks? I don't think so. On a more serious note, so dividing the problem into different parts. We have the gateways and sensors installed around the city that cannot be physically be secured. We have the public radio spectrum. Other networks can also be deployed around the city. We're not the only ones. We have multiple providers, vendors, partners, and user groups for the services that we intend to provide or are providing. And we have the normal welcome to the internet threats. So how do we tackle those issues, or how do we minimize the risk? We plan, we monitor, and alert and react. Hopefully, we add the missing security to IoT. How does that look like? We have the gateway simulations, how the network could look like. We have the different gateway locations, live monitoring, if they are up, the uptime. We have the load monitoring of the whole network, the network quality, how we are receiving the different packets, and we have our alerting system. Some of those security features are provided by the GUARD project, and one of the partners providing security features is NASC. They provide with the net anomaly detector, detection of jamming, of continuous jamming, random or deceptive jamming, battery drain, gray hole attacks, distributed denial of service attacks, or changes in size, message interval, and distribution, which may indicate the occurrence of an attack. We also have the AIT from Austria providing online log analysis and log-based anomaly detection. It's self-learning and open source also. With the integration in the GUARD project, we expect to have improved SLAs, and we as the work of the infrastructure provider. We are mostly concerned about the availability and integrity of the infrastructure. One of our partners, JIC, is the service provider. They care more about the reliability, continuity, and trustworthiness of their operation, and the end users, in this case, the citizens of Wolfsburg, expect a high-level experience without being locked into a proprietary platform. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Cornelio. If you agree, I would move to the next speaker, and then maybe we can have one or two sections for you both. So I would like to give the floor to Ahmed Duzza, who is a senior R&D project manager at Gruppo Maggioli. He's responsible for the management and coordination of the international R&D project and is the coordinator of the GUARD project. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Vito, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you also to FIWARE for organizing this event and for the invitation. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, so my presentation today is about the second use case that we have in the GUARD project, and it's about the e-health sector. Okay, I was going a bit fast. Okay, so this use case, let's say the main objective of this use case is to demonstrate how GUARD builds security by design mechanism and enable the patients to monitor, track, control the propagation of their personal and sensitive data, eventually by making the final decision on who can access and process their data. Also give the possibility to revoke the permission to previously, let's say, accession permitted, also to ask for the removal of their data or to restrict the data to be shared following the full implemented GDPR regulation, and one of its critical, let's say, principles, the data minimization. This use case involves a set of medical services for the treatment plan and clinical path of patients affected by breast cancer. And this, let's say, use case is let's say, hosted by the Policlinico Tor Vergata, one of the largest hospitals based in Rome. The data that we are going to collect and let's say to work with are coming from different departments of the breast cancer, as I mentioned before. So we have the nuclear medicine, the anatomic pathology, the surgical unit, but also medicine laboratory. However, all the data will be anonymized or pseudo-anonymized based also, let's say, on the type of data that are going to be collected and used, because sometimes they are data available on paper, but other, let's say, most of the other data are available in electronic format. The architecture of this specific use case consists of different components. We have the backend service that performs the main business logic for the collection and processing of the patient's data. This application will be installed on each of the department of the breast cancer unit, and each application can ask other components for the reserved clinical data. As a precondition, each of the application department will have full access to its own data, while the access will be mediated by the application authorization system. There is also the front-end application, which is a web-based client used by the end users, so the patient themselves, in order to interact with the system. We have also the storage system, which is basically NoSQL database used for the data storage and other external services. We have also static and reporting services, mainly to provide all possible correlation among data of the different departments that are involved, and also to provide the anonymization service. Then we have also the optical character recognition and text mining service, which performs OCRs against paper-based documents like medical reports or surgery reports that are available only on paper. This service will also be used to extract relevant data like patient data, diagnosis, but in general is one of the main input source for the system. And last but not least, we have also the IDS connector, which is a local IDS connector used for sharing the data between the different services and participate to the enforcement phase of the transaction. And last, there is the API gateway, which is simply a single entry point into the system that includes internal system architecture. Then in this figure, I'm also showing a possible deployment of this healthcare service chain over a network infrastructure. The application will be hosted completely in a private cloud environment, so at our premises, having the front end running on a personal computer. The application related to a specific department will run in separate environments, and the only way to share the data with the other departments is through the IDS connector. So what are the issues that we want to tackle with this specific use case? In this presentation today, also providing that we have time constraints, I have, let's say, put in emphasis two main security concerns related to this use case. First of all, to guarantee the integrity and the trustworthy of the entire business chain related to this specific e-health domain. So the current identity management and access control tools that have already been developed into distributed systems like cloud computing, IoT, cyber physical system, but they not all of them, let's say, are able to guarantee the integrity nor the dependability on the whole chain over time. So how we are, let's say, tackling with this specific challenge? In particular, we have one GUARD agent, which is called attack detection. And this is, let's say, made possible through one of the components, which is called virtual deep packet inspector, provided by one of our partners, 8Bells SME situated in Cyprus. And this component employs state-of-the-art techniques to intercept and analyze network traffic in order to classify the identify network protocols. And overall, the main functionalities that are provided by this component, among others, are to produce and provide the necessary network traffic data for automated detection of known attacks, produce and provide attack detection, which monitor the system behavior to recognize activity patterns that can be associated to known threats and attacks, and also create and report historical and statistical data for the traffic flows. And last, to produce also network traffic analytics. Then there is an additional service security service that is already, let's say, integrated in the GUARD platform. In this case, this component is provided by our partner Forth, let's say, from Greece, and this component is aiming to detect possible security flaws in the service chain and also to assess the trustworthiness of the business chain overall, so according to the user's policies and carrying out evaluation of the risk exposure related to the security breaches. The immediate results that are useful for the risk estimation are the numerical CFSS scores for the discovered vulnerabilities, as well as their qualitative severity level. The next security issue, I don't know why it's not changing. Okay, it was so fast. The next security issue that we have, let's say, we are investigating in the scope of this use case is the control over the propagation of private and sensitive data. So when private data and sensitive data, including, for example, personal information as name and surnames, addresses, birthday, genetic and biometric information, but also health status about the patient, when these are shared among components in multiple domains, many times it's almost impossible to track them and limit their propagation. So we want to make this possible through the GUARD platform, and in particular we have the data tracking model that is provided by our partner Webcom from Germany, and let's say the main objective of this component is to track the position and propagation of user data within the service chain. So it will keep historical evidence on the position and exchange of sensitive data. In this last slide, just before concluding, this is an example of the GUARD dashboard. This is, of course, from the technical perspective. So this is not the dashboard that we are going, let's say, this is not the front end that we are going to show to the user, but this is the dashboard from the GUARD platform itself that illustrates all the data of the patient that have been tracked within the different departments of the Policlinico Tor Vergata. The dashboard will also include a control interface in order to set access and usage restriction, as well as to request the removal of data from specific service domains. Okay, so I think, yeah, this is my last presentation for today. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Ahmed. Okay, I don't see questions in the tab. I have one that could be, I think, for both or for either of you. In your presentation, you mentioned in the first presentation a component, self-learning net anomaly detector. In this case, in the health use case, there are several components that I assume are based on AI. So the question is, do you see adversarial AI risk for these components? So considering that they are AI empowered. Or I don't know if you address.
Well, I don't know if I see adversarial AI as in if I can answer that. I think the real issue is not, in a sense, adversarial AI, but real humans coming up with new attacks, like, or just simple things, jamming devices or malfunctioning devices that are not sending according to the specs. That can also bring down a network. So I don't know if the threat of in our case, because you have to be physically in the city to affect us in a senseful way, that AI is such a big threat in that case. I think a person or a misconfigured device is a bigger threat.
Okay, thanks. Armen, anything to add?
If I may add, for the e-health sector, I think that what is the major concern is about the diversity of the devices, and so also the diversity of the type of data that are collected, and also so we have not only digital data but sometimes also paper-based data. So what I would think is about this, let's say, risk of the AI. So they have to be trained with a different set of data. There is not one specific data type of data that is related to this particular case. So we need a large amount of data, but also a variety of data and formats, and also in terms of size.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I think we are approaching to the conclusion. Before moving to the last speaker, I would like to thank all the speaker during this event for their very valuable contribution. So now I would like to pass the floor and to provide some conclusions, some remarks to Stefano. Stefano is first of all a friend, so it's really a pleasure to pass the floor to him. Stefano used to work more than 20 years for engineering, playing several roles, but I would like to mention Director of R&D Labs and Chief Innovation Officer. Now Stefano is in FIWARE. He joins FIWARE in 2017. He is the Chief COO, and is responsible also of the FIWARE lab notes, and he is member of the FIWARE Technical Steering Committee. So please, Stefano, conclude the meeting.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Vito. It was really funny to hear my introduction from you. Thank you very much for this. And first of all, of course, as you all did, I would like to thank all the speakers and also the attendees to this event, which is one of the series of the FIWARE events that we, FIWARE days that we organize quite intensively. So please stay tuned with us. In fact, providing some concluding remarks on this Cybersecurity Day is not only a pleasure, but also complicated, let me say, because we are really seeing today a wide range of issues, from political recommendation down to technical implementation of some of those aspects that the recommendation provides. Certainly, also taking advantage of one of the questions that was also mentioned by Vito during the day about this, the question was about quantum computing. The issue here is that, of course, as soon as new technologies are provided, as soon as new technology are provided and they're deployed, particularly, of course, we are talking about ICT, the new opportunities not only are for all of us as citizens, but also for threats. And this is part of the life. I mean, we have seen this all over the evolution of the technology in general, the human being. So as soon as the wheel was invited, perhaps the wheel was also used to use trucks against other people to carry weapons. And then, of course, it's the way the technology is used that make the issue. So in the context of ICT, my understanding here is that we cannot avoid the evolution of technologies. Above all, we want to have even more evolution of technologies, but certainly what we want to have is to create and understand how to make our systems and our lives resilient, because this is the key concept. I mean, we can create huge walls, but at a certain point, this wall can be overpassed or destroyed. And then at that point, we are naked in front of whatever enemy is. Here, the issue is to understand that the enemy and the danger is inside our home. And this is what makes the difference. Because as also Paolo was mentioning before, we need 1 year to understand that there was an issue at Marriott. This was maybe too long to allow other attacks to be made without understanding that there were some. So, so this is, I think, the way we should consider. So this is why the more, as Yaron said, the large use of standards in this context may help exactly on create some overall resilience, because the way we can share information, understandings, policies and recommendations is a way to protect ourselves. I think this was also the rationale behind the question of my colleague Alberto. What about that was about data sharing and the effect that the data sharing and data models can have on the resilience, on cyber resilience, actually, as Vito mentioned. So yes, to conclude, I would say that there is a lot of work that we should do as a community in an open and collaborative way in order to make the system as much as possible resilient, adopting the various technologies that we have. It is too easy in this sense to think that, for instance, introducing wonderful technologies like artificial intelligence from one side, this can be used also as a, let's say, a counter weapon against ourselves. But as I said, this is part of the nature. We are not to fear. Actually, it's the other way around. We have to improve our understanding and our analysis. So I appreciate very much the presentation of Yaron, also the presentation of Paolo, that were exactly providing some the leading edge at the current way of analyzing attacks, threats, and then understanding the way we could improve our defenses and our, understanding of the situation. So, yes, with this message, I would like to thank again you all for being with us. I would like also to reinforce the message that if you go on the FIWARE.org, you will find a series of events coming in various domains, and the one that is the next one is the the FIWARE Fest. As now my colleague Angeles, I think she put the slide there. The FIWARE Fest is the current possible version of the FIWARE Summit. You know that we have already always in the past years the FIWARE Summit as a 3-day event where people network and understand and discuss about evolution ICT. So this year we organize it as an online event. So there will be 3 full days of networking, also using this platform we are using now, which has much more features than the one that we saw today, that allows also networking and between people as we were in an event, as we hope in the near future to be all there. So thank you again for being here with us, and yes, have a nice day, and thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you to the organizers.
Thank you. I was mute. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Stefano, Nicolas, Paolo, Fabio. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Angelis. Great event. Thank you very much.
Thank you.